Rachel is one of the few engines on the Northwestern not too many people know about. She was first seen in the first two illustrations of the 3 railway engines, but never again after that. Until now.
Oh, hello, James. What are you doing here? I thought it was my turn to collect the mail then. You're not James, are you?
Do I look like a James to you?
Well, a little bit. I mean, you are red and pretty big and... Rachel?
And you know my name how? Unless... Henry?
Well, I'm glad you finally figured that out. I thought you'd been scrapped. Everyone on Sodor had.
Nope. Just preserved by the rail transport and the traffic union with my sister.
Rail transport, eh? There's no railway I've ever heard of. But in any case, you have no idea what your return to Sodor will mean to us. Assuming that's where you're headed.
That's right. By the way, is Edward still around?
You wouldn't believe it, Rachel, but yes. And I bet he'll be most thrilled to see you again. Thomas and Gordon and Lily, too.
Oh, wonderful. But, out of curiosity, who is this James character you were referring to?
What? Another big red engine? But when did this happen all of a sudden? I wasn't informed.
Well, I'm informing you now. And for your information, this big red engine used to work here before you did. Besides, no one knew of her return until tonight.
But what does that leave me with? If there's another red tender engine running around the main line, that means I'll be nothing more than a common utility engine.
Fuck no, that's you into one already.
Oh, gotcha there, James.
Well, there goes my position on this railway.
But it wasn't until the next morning that Rachel finally arrived at the big station. She had spent the night on the other railway, having traveled a long way, and was now trying to make up for lost time.
Slow down, Rachel. There is a speed limit, you know.
Come on now, driver. I'm an engine of experience. I'll slow down once we... Brakes! Driver, brakes! Oh, phew.
Rachel,
Oh, Miss Hat, I was...
speeding into Knapford above the approved speed limit.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I wasn't thinking.
Bloody right you were, you big red buffoon.
Driver, stay out of this.
All right, enough, both of you. Rachel, I don't know what my great-grandfather allowed from you all these years ago, but we have different rules now, and for good reason, too. So if I see you going over the speed limit again...
Yes, I know. I'll be in big trouble. You don't need to tell me.
Precisely. And don't give me that attitude.
Ha! So this is the big red engine mishap brought back. How pathetic. First day back and you've already forgotten your early safety 101.
And you're this James fellow I've been told about. You're a lot smaller than I thought you'd be.
Well, at least I'm light enough to work anywhere on this railway, unlike you big express types who are confined to one line.
And that's what you call an accomplishment, eh? Oh, bravo, Sonny Jim. Talk to me when you've actually achieved something, like preventing a runaway from crashing into your passenger train, or moving two failed diesels and their trains with a failed regulator. Or, in my case, pulling off more speed records and perfect runs than anyone on this island.
Listen here, you big red show-off.
I have a name, you know. It's Rachel. Don't tell me you're as bad with reading as you are with etiquette.
The only one who's bad with whatever it's called is standing right in front of me. This railway ain't big enough for 2 dead engines, at least not with tenders. So if I suggest you do whatever it is you came here to do and stay out of my way. Now if you excuse me, my adoring public awaits.
Rachel's first job was to take the Wild Nor'Wester while Pip and Emma were being fitted with new engines. She was excited to be back pulling the express trains again, and was even more excited as she approached Edward's station.
Lovely to see you again, Rachel.
And same to you, Edward.
Yes, Rachel.
You do realise there's a red engine right here too, don't you? Stupid visitors. Don't they know a splendid engine when they see one anymore?
Oh, stop being such a grouch, James. Rachel's been gone for decades, and I agree with those visitors that her return is more than worth rejoicing for.
Is that so? What's she got that's a splendid engine that me hasn't? I deserve to be credited as the only big red engine on this island.
Is that what this was all about? Why, I'm beyond words right now. One could think that a century-old engine like yourself would know better than to insult someone for being the same colour as you.
That's different. She's not like Salty or those tank engines in the Great Western Line. This is a dead engine that's bigger than me. Being the only dead engine as big as me is all I have, Edward.
Perhaps if you dropped that ego of yours and did something worthwhile around here, you might have something worth bragging about for once.
James was too proud to admit it, but he knew that Edward, and Rachel for that matter, were right. Being a red tender engine was the only thing he had to be proud of, having accomplished very little in this life. But while he was deep in thought about that, Rachel was starting to have troubles of her own.
I don't recall the express being this heavy. Driver, more speed if you don't mind.
Sorry, old girl, but this is as fast as you can go without falling apart. We don't need you stuck in the works again so soon.
But I'm an express engine. Surely I can't be... Wow. Am I getting too old for this?
Well, here's a sight I thought I'd never see. The legend of the 3 railway engines returning to Sodor. Must be lovely to be back on familiar metals, eh? Rochelle?
Just call me Rachel.
Is something the matter, Rachel? Well, other than you being out of puff.
Not something. Someone. And it's a big red tinder engine.
But there's only one of those around here, and she's standing. Oh, you mean James. I suppose he did something to put you down. Did he make fun of you for struggling with that express?
I'm afraid it's much worse than that. First, he laughed at me for going over the speed limit at the big station, and then he called me a show-off simply because I was the same colour as him. I've dealt with engines as bad as him, but I thought they'd be more sensible than that nowadays.
Oh, he's not all that bad, Rachel. He's just used to being the only big red engine on the island. It's a mark of distinction, according to him. Worry not, my dear. He'll get used to you soon enough. But what I would worry about is perhaps getting some help with the express there.
Get help? Oh, nonsense. I just need to get back into the swing of it, that's all.
that night, instead of sleeping at the big sheds with the other engines, James made his way along Duck's branch line to sleep at Augsburg. But as he passed the sheds, he could hear Rachel and the others talking about him.
So you're telling me he can't really climb hills?
Well, not with long, heavy trades anyway.
Exactly. One time, he slipped on some leaves and the coaches dragged him down Gordon's Hill. My driver read about that in a book.
And then he struggled with young, troublesome trucks long ago. I had to help him up the hill. But even then, he was running out of steam.
Oh, hey, James, we were just, Guys, I think we just offended him.
Oh, never mind him, Remembrance. He's just being pouty again. Nothing out of the ordinary.
They think I'm going to stay where I'm not one of the kind. They can think again. Have no fear, little Westerners, for this splendid engine has come to brighten up your... So much for standing out here, I suppose.
The next morning, Miss Hat came to see James as the mainline engines had told her where he had been last night.
Ah, James, there you are. Why didn't you tell me you'd be sleeping here instead of Knapford?
Well, I needed a change of pace, ma'am.
Is that so? Well, if it's a change of pace you're after, I'll be putting you on express duties today. Rachel needs help pulling the Wild Nor'Wester.
The Wild Nor'Wester, eh? Thank you so much.
James was excited to be pulling the big express again, but he shuddered at just the thought of having to work with Rachel. She, on the other hand, was most pleased when he backed down in front of her.
I really don't understand why Miss Hat didn't just let me take the train myself. I've done it before. I can handle it.
Well, you and I aren't as young as we once were, and the express is now heavier and has a tighter schedule. Besides, I thought the passengers would love it if there were 2 red engines pulling it. Lovely idea I came up with, wouldn't you say?
I'd say we get this job over with.
Little did he and his driving fireman know, Rachel had a plan to teach him a lesson for insulting her. But even he couldn't complain about the start of the journey. When people stood in great crowds to take pictures, he, of course, took full advantage of it. And Rachel was glad to have someone helping her, but also excited to put her plan into action.
Right. When we reach Edwards Junction, that's the signal.
Rachel, the next signal's up for another mile.
Oh, I knew that. So James hasn't a clue what I'm speaking of.
It wasn't long before they reached Edwards Station. But as the 2 engines were just clearing the platform...
Ah, what's happening to me? Stop! Stop!
What in the name of Audrey?
Brake, James! Brake or you'll flatten my tires!
Once the express came to a complete stop, Rachel's driver clambered out of her cab and went to inspect her wheels. He secretly banged a shovel against the cab floor to make it sound like something was wrong with her.
Oh dear, Rachel. You've damaged your side rod something awful. James, can you pull us to Crovan's Gate and drop us off there?
Me? But I can't pull her and the express.
That's not what you said at Knapford. You've told me you've done this before, remember?
You're right. What's my problem? Of course I can do this. Right, let's get a move on.
Of course, James's problem was his ineptitude to pull heavy loads uphill, and Gordon's hill was just up ahead. But the red engine was so determined to move the express by himself that he forgot him. Rachel, on the other hand, hadn't. And when they reached the hill, her chance for revenge had come.
Boy, are you heavy!
Come on, James. You can do it.
No, I can't. No, I can't.
James struggled and strained, and his wheels slipped on the damp rails. Rachel didn't help at all. She just watched him with glee. But as they were halfway up the gradient, it happened.
Of course this had happened. Fine time to break down, Rachel, and with the most important train on the line too.
Yeah, fine time indeed.
What? Rachel, what are you doing? What about your eyebrows?
Oh, I'll explain when we reach the top.
Now it was Rachel's turn to feel the drag of the coaches. She puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed as hard as ever she could. But at last, they reached the top and ran smoothly down the other side. The same couldn't be said for their conversation, though.
You're unbelievable. You know that. You knew all along that I couldn't pull long trains uphill. What sensible engine would pretend to break down and let the fellow engines rest themselves?
Look, I only meant for you to slip on the hill. I didn't think you burst your safety valve or anything like that. Give me a break.
Give you a break? After that stunt you pulled on me?
Well, maybe this wouldn't have happened if you weren't such a prejudiced fool.
Prejudiced? Who do you think you are?
When they arrived at Crovan's Gate, Rachel was uncoupled from the train and pushed James into the works. To her surprise, out came an old friend, fully repaired and ready for work.
Gordon!
I never thought I'd see the day. Rachel, my dear! I thought you'd been lost.
So had everyone else, apparently. I love that new look of yours, Gordon. Were you just getting rebuilt or something, like Roderick?
Actually, that rebuild of mine happened ages ago. No, my pipes had been clogged, so I had to wait until they could be replaced. Turns out one of them had rusted over time. Oh, I see you've brought a friend with you.
Oh, that's James.
Looks more like a common utility engine to me. James is the only tender engine of his color. It's a mark of distinction for him.
And he can handle big express trains, unlike my friend over here. But if I hadn't tricked him into straining himself, he wouldn't be in this mess.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Rachel. You did try and teach him sense, and you certainly did well with the Wild Nor'Wester. But perhaps it'd be best if I assisted you with it. I just passed my final inspection, and the train's not what it used to be, as I'm sure you've found out by now. That's the spirit.
Rachel's driver phoned Miss Hatt, and with her permission, she and Gordon puffed out of the works to return to the express. And they left James with a great deal to think about. Needless to say, far from being one of a kind as he once was, he felt like a rather foolish engine.
Back in the works already, James. Alright, who did you insult to get you in trouble this time?
I'd rather not talk about it.